Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the GG Report. I'm your host, Godfrey Gichuki. This is another very exciting session we have today. I welcome you to share the links. We are live on Elevate TV and also on the social media platforms. So please share Facebook, Elevate TV Kenya, Facebook, and YouTube links. They are with you. So share and let's get the conversation underway. Today we're going to be going into some corporate discussions. The subject of our discussion is corporate governance, why small businesses fail. And I'm going to be introducing that in a short while. I have a guest with me on the set, Stephen Lugaria. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Gigi, and thank you for welcoming me to this beautiful studio of yours.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very happy to have our guest with us. Now, in recent times, we have witnessed fantastic business failures in the corporate, in the retail, banking, and even education sectors. And while business environments may be to blame for those fantastic failures, there are still other questions we need to ask, and that's where the issue of corporate governance comes in. So what is the role of corporate governance in ensuring that business are sustainable? And so we're going to be going into that. And as always, the GG Report is a platform where we hold big, bold discussions and conversations and on a broad range of subject matters as usual: social, economic, philosophical, theological, political. And today it's a business conversation, so welcome you to join us in this conversation. And before my guest, gets to begin to tell us about corporate governance, let me introduce my guest to us. My guest is Stephen Lugaria, and he's a fellow of the Institute of Certified Public Accounts of Kenya, that is FCPAK, and a seasoned leader and with a strong focus on governance and business solutions. And he is a past chairman of the ICPAK, and he is the CEO of FGB Solutions. That's a consulting firm. He does consultancy, and he's also former finance director and CFO, Chief Finance Officer for Heritage Insurance, formerly, and I think currently known as Liberty. So he brings to us a very broad, depth of experience, and I believe he's going to help us delve into this particular conversation. So, Stephen, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gigi. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I'm very happy to have you here. And today we want to focus on this very important subject, corporate governance. And but before we go into the actual governance issues, perhaps we can begin from a brief about your career background and then what inspired you to pursue corporate governance. So if you can give us that little background, and then we can now begin to talk about the governance proper.
Indeed, and thank you again for welcoming me here. So my name is Steve Lugalia, and I'm basically an accountant by training.
Okay.
So I trained and worked with Coopers and Lybrand, is now referred to as PwC.
Right.
As an auditor.
Okay.
That was the first job I had when I left University of Nairobi.
All right.
So I was there for a couple of years, and when I left, while there, my focus was mainly on doing audits.
Okay.
And training, recruiting and training new staff.
Okay.
Yeah. So I developed some interest in training.
Okay.
So after a number of years, I left and then went into proper industry. So
Okay.
I joined an insurance group called Heritage.
Yes.
Which now is a big group called Liberty Group.
All right.
So I was there for a number of years, and that is where I got introduced to corporate governance.
Right.
Actually, my introduction to governance was by mistake.
Okay.
I never intended, I didn't even know what corporate governance was.
Okay.
But I remember one morning my boss came to me and told me, I've received this letter inviting somebody from a company to go for training in corporate governance.
Right.
So I didn't really, and he told me, I think you're the best placed person. It looks like this is something for accountants.
Yes.
So I went for the training.
Okay.
And the training was organized by an institution called Center for Corporate Governance.
Okay.
It's a very well-known institution in terms of training in governance in this country.
Okay.
So I went for the training.
Yes.
Somewhere in the park, Kilaguni.
Uh-huh.
And that's really when my mind was opened up to a lot of things about governance.
Okay.
I realized that there are so many things that businesses, institutions can do, that can improve their performance.
Okay.
Because in that training, you go through basically all the areas of good governance, in terms of how do you set strategy, how do you monitor strategy, how do you set up the big structures in governance in terms of the board of directors, accountability issues, risk issues. So it really opened up this world for me. And when I came back, I said, you know what, this is an area I'd like to pursue.
Okay.
So I pursued that with the center, and I told the center, I'm quite keen to know more about this.
Yes.
So they eventually trained me to be a trainer in corporate governance.
Okay.
And since then, I've been training with them, and I can tell you that is one space that can change not just a country,
Okay.
but also institutions.
All right.
So that's how I got introduced and hooked to corporate governance.
I think that's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
And then perhaps how was your your experience at Heritage? Being head of finance. People who are head of finance, they are held in awe.
In awe, indeed.
Yes.
Yes. So actually, the way I got into Heritage was Heritage was my client when I was an auditor in Coopers and Library.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
So and the boss then.
Yes.
The boss then, I think, got to like what you're doing as a firm.
Yes.
And also what I was doing as an individual.
Yes.
And eventually he kind of talked to me on the side and said, why can't you join us and come and improve our accounting function here?
Yes, yes.
And indeed I joined them, and the experience was wonderful.
Okay.
Fortunately for me, I think I was entering into a mature company.
Okay.
So there are a lot of good structures there.
Yes.
So it's really a question of how do I improve on what you already had.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and that I think that's very that speaks very strongly of some of these very successful businesses that have actually survived many years along the way. So very good. So let's then go into the basics of sound corporate governance in organizations. Yes. So maybe you can sketch that for us. When people hear about corporate governance, and I'm sure there are people who are watching who have small and micro, there's the micro.
The small and micro enterprise.
Actually, it is micro, small, and medium enterprise. So some businesses are so micro, yes. 2 people, 3 people. Those are micro. Once they are between 10 and I think and 50, that's when they are called small businesses. Yes, yes. And then 50 to 100, according to our definitions, they are called medium enterprises. So, so if you can give us an overview of what exactly corporate governance would involve, the basics, so that then some of these people, when they are thinking about setting that up, they can have a frame to begin with.
Yes, indeed. So we start from the premise that when you set up a business,
yes,
or any institution, it may not be a business, any institution,
yes,
you have some objectives you want to achieve.
Yes.
If you look at a typical business, you want to make money for the shareholders.
Yes.
Typical business.
Yes.
So if you look at the basics, and I must be clear here that there is a difference between what you expect to see in a small enterprise compared to what you expect to see in a mature enterprise.
Yes, yes.
But there are certain things that are common and they're basic.
Yes.
And one of the things that any business must have in place is be very clear about the roles of the various individuals within that business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
You could be the owner of the business. You set up the business. It could be a family business. Yeah. You could even be employing your own relatives.
Yes.
One will be a finance person, another one will be a human resource person, maybe another one in charge of sales. So those roles must be very clear. Yeah.
Yes.
So that if I'm in charge of sales, I know this is what I'm supposed to do, this is what I'm supposed to deliver.
Yes.
Yeah? So the owner should not keep interfering with what I'm doing.
Yes.
Give me a script.
Yes.
This is your job description.
Yes.
And let me do the work.
Okay.
So that's the basic one. Clarity of roles of the players within the business.
Okay.
That's number one. Number two, you must have some policies. However basic the business is,
yes,
you must have some policies.
Yes.
For example, if I was to recruit staff, yeah, what's
yes,
the policy for recruitment? If
yes,
I'm the accountant and I want to recruit somebody to support me, is there policy around recruitment? Or can I just go and get anybody and tell them, you know what, you're my buddy, come and help me do this work?
Yes.
So it must be very clear. If you want to recruit, either you advertise, there must be some basic qualifications that you must be looking for. So those policies are important. Even things like procurement. Where do you procure? How do you procure? How do you make sure you're getting the right quality?
Yes.
So policies.
Yes. Yes.
Extremely important.
Right.
Yeah. So you have clear responsibility in terms of the roles.
Yes.
And then policies must be in place. So those two are very basic, but they're very, very important.
Right.
Of course, now as you grow, you'll find that a time comes when the separation between the owner and the people running the business.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
it's a natural progression.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a natural progression.
Natural
Yes.
progression. So when that time comes,
Yes.
you find that Gigi, as the founder of this business, your role now becomes different from the people you put in place to run the business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, commonly called directors.
Yes.
So your role becomes different.
Yes.
And you must respect that. So you put me as one of your directors. I've got very clear responsibilities. I'm supposed to make sure that I'm delivering value to you. And for me to do that, you must leave me to do my work. So my role must be very clear. The owner, you are funding the business, you are an investor. You may have the vision. You know, you're a vision carrier, which is fine.
Yes.
And that's what, as directors, now we need to see through that vision. And for us to do that, it must be very clear that your role is not to tell us what to do.
Yes.
Have you got the right people on the board? Let them do the work. So as you progress, then there's need for that separation of ownership
separation.
and the management of the business.
Okay.
So as you grow up.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that natural progression is there. And of course, you must be very clear about whom do you want on that board. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
the initial, and I think most of us, we do that in terms of when you're setting up structures. The initial temptation is
Yes.
to go to people you know,
Yes.
people who may be your friends, and say, can you please come and sit on my board
Yes.
and help me do this work? You know, can you please? So you're looking for familiar people, people you trust probably, people you know. Yeah. And that is it is okay. As long as you're very clear in your mind as the shareholder or the founder, what is Steve Lugalo going to bring on this board? What is it that I need for somebody else to bring on this board? Am I looking for financial management skills? Am I looking for sales skills? So you must be very clear about what you want to see on the board in order to support your vision.
Absolutely.
So those are basics.
Yes. So I like that. I like that. And since you and me, perhaps, you know, you have worked with small businesses, I think it's very clear that most small businesses or even large, even church organizations are really lacking in those dimensions, you know, clarity of responsibility.
Yes.
You know, the people you have in the team, you know, the most important, they are called the people who matter at the core of the organization.
Correct.
Those roles, and then the policies that you need to put in place, and then of course at that point of separation, so you have the board and you have the managers, and make sure that there's a thick line.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, very good. I think that's very, very important. And of course, we'll be coming back to some of those issues.
Sure.
Maybe how you select the board, or you have just mentioned some of those. So we can talk about what mistakes do businesses make when setting up their corporate structures. Now that, given your experience, especially having been on the auditing side of business, you know, when you're auditing a business, you really see the loop, you see what is missing. You know, maybe they even don't have paperwork, their procurement is, there are no vouchers, there are no supporting documents, the filing is poor. What's up some of the mistakes businesses make? And then we can also be a little bit more specific. I think we will delve into some of the ones that are in the public domain. Correct. And maybe speculate a little bit. But let's talk about what you think they make.
Yeah, so some of the basic mistakes, first of all, when you're going into business, ask yourself, do you have a plan for this business? Do I have a plan? You have an idea, but do you have a plan?
Okay.
In terms of how you'll execute it. And the plan speaks to many things. And one of the key things a plan speaks to is capital. You know, do you have enough money to invest in the business?
Right.
Some people say, I'll put in a little, I'll grow as I go along. Yeah? But is that little enough to sustain that business? So adequacy of capital is one of the key things.
Okay.
Because sometimes you find you're growing and you can't service your clients, you can't get the products, and eventually end up giving poor service.
Okay.
And that very quickly runs you out of business because now you're known for poor service. So do you have enough capital?
Right.
That's number one. The second mistake sometimes businesses make is to try and adopt a structure that they cannot support.
Okay.
Yeah. So I tell SMEs, small business people, cut your clothes according to your size.
Okay.
We know you aspire to be a Safaricom one day.
Yes.
But you're not there yet.
Yes.
Yeah. So Safaricom has got this lavish board. They've got these lavish structures. Don't rush going there.
Yes.
What are the basic things you need to run your business now? Yeah.
Yes.
Now, what are the basic things? And I talked to some of them. And one of the things that you must make sure it's embedded is accountability in the business. Accountability in the business.
Yes.
In other words, whatever you are doing, can you be able to account for it?
Okay.
If you're selling, for example, you're selling a product, yeah? What are the records that you're keeping? If I came to you in the evening and asked you, so how much do you sell this today and this week? Will you be able to tell me I sold so much? And will you be able to show me the documentation for that? So you find some businesses don't actually have basic documentation.
Okay.
Just basic documentation. And they very often sometimes forget that a business is separate from themselves.
Okay.
Yeah. So you'll find a person, it's lunchtime, you go to the till, you take whatever you've collected and go and have lunch with that money. Best,
Yeah.
forgetting that actually this money belongs to the business.
Right.
You can use it, all right.
Yes.
But how do you account for it?
Okay.
You should show it as money belongs to the business. So accountability is a big issue when
Okay.
it comes to small businesses, accountability. And basic record keeping.
Okay.
Record keeping.
Yes.
And some businesses you find, you're starting a business today and you want to have a lavish office, this is the owner's, managing director's office, an accountant's office over there, you're buying 3 computers. Those things are good.
Yes.
But can you afford them? Can the business support those things?
Exactly.
In fact, some go even further and invite people to be in a board of directors.
Right.
At that level, do you need a board of directors?
Okay.
So these are hard questions you must ask yourself. Yes.
No, I like that, Stephen, because I think I call it a kind of MBA syndrome.
MBA.
When we do MBA, I'm sure you probably have one of those MBAs, which I also have. MBAs can be a liability because, we come to business with very grand ideas, like you are describing. So you are starting up, you have little capital, maybe even just 2 million or 3 million. And then you have this lavish office outlay, CEO's office. And of course, when your friends come, you show them the big offices.
Give them a lot of tea and cookies.
You entertain them there.
Yeah,
while actually the business hasn't even started. You don't have sales happening. So you'd have to be very prudent. So
very prudent.
You're suggesting that for small businesses, then you need to kind of like have a slightly different approach, a kind of organic growth. You grow from where you are, one desk, the only desk, one computer, and then grow up.
And then grow up.
Yes, through the system.
Through the system.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Now, you've mentioned capital as a big impediment. In your years of experience, how do you think somebody can navigate? There are people with very brilliant ideas. And I know we may not have enough time to spend on that, but in what ways can somebody fund a business that requires maybe that kind of, what has been your observation?
Yeah, so if you're setting up a business, there are various ways you can fund a business, that initial capital.
Yes.
The obvious one is first of all, your savings.
Yes.
Do you have enough savings to be able to set up something?
Okay.
And if those savings are not enough, then who else can you turn to? So many times we turn to friends, we turn to family, and say, can we set up as a family? Can you contribute something and set up this business?
Okay.
And that's perfectly right. It's perfectly right. If you've got a family that is able, that's okay. And many businesses, by the way, even some of the biggest businesses, that's how they started.
Yes.
It was a family kitty. Family kitty, and it grew. Yeah. So, and how about if you don't have wealthy family members? You can look at friends. you can have a loose arrangement, friends, in the sense that you say, I want to set up this business and I'm looking for partners.
Right.
Yeah? Then you got to decide, so what sort of structure do I want to have? You know, do I want to borrow money from these friends? Or do I want them to be part of my business?
Okay.
So you can decide, okay, it will be a loan. I'll pay you back maybe whatever period you agree. Or actually, you guys, why can't you partner with me?
Okay.
Yeah, and then they put in money, and then you become a partnership. You can set up even a small company, and then you start your business. You know?
Okay.
Of course, there are other institutions that you can borrow money from. You know, if you have the necessary, if you meet the necessary requirements,
right,
you can go to financial institutions.
Yes, yes.
And in this country, there's a lot of, I think that there are a lot of institutions, both in the private sector and government institutions that are actually prepared to look at funding people who've got good ideas.
Okay.
You know, government has got a lot of initiatives where they fund businesses. You know, whether it's the women, whether it's so that's those ones. And also some banks have got actually specific focus on SMEs.
Yes.
Whereby you can go and, you know, they look at your case differently from a mature company because they know maybe you don't have adequate security, and they can fund you. Okay.
Okay.
The funds may be expensive, but at least you can access the funds.
Okay.
So that's another way of funding your business.
Right.
Of course, as you grow, then you may want one day to invite the public and tell them, you know what, I'm issuing shares to the public. But that is in the long haul.
Okay, and that's the exciting bit when you get there.
Yes.
Okay. So we've looked at the issue of you know, some of the mistakes is you know, lack of policies, lack of plans. You know, the plans not being very adequate to support the business, and the issue of you know, bringing in the wrong people,
yes.
And lack of that. Okay, so let's. I want us to go into the issue of this corruption thing. You know, you know. I want us to begin to attack it because I think one of the problem with corporate governance is that while you know, there are still organizations that seem to fail fantastically. So. Let's raise the issue of ethical and moral standards that must inform today's corporate governance. I know that's a subject I'm opening up because it also speaks to the issue of corruption. So what should we consider in terms of ethics and morals when you're setting up
a business?
Yes.
As any business, you're not operating in a vacuum.
Right.
You know, you're operating in a certain setup. In this country, I look at as you're operating within the country's structures.
Okay.
The overall governance structures of the country.
Okay.
You know, because those ones dictate a lot of things.
All right.
You know, you'll be affected by the policies that the government puts in place. So you're operating within that particular structure.
Okay.
So as a business, there's certain ethical and moral issues that you must always consider. And one of the basic ones is the issues of integrity in a business.
Okay.
Integrity in a business. Yeah, that is extremely important.
Right.
Yeah? Because whatever you do, yeah, if you don't have integrity, then a lot of things in that business could go wrong in terms of even the way you deal with your customers, the way you deal with your staff, things could go wrong in that business.
Okay.
So integrity is paramount. And this is something that probably, if you ask me, is one of the biggest issues within corporate governance.
Okay.
Because a lot of people are trained in corporate governance. They know what to do. They know what the structure should be in place. But they end up running businesses that fail.
Right.
And why is it so? Because of issues of integrity.
Okay. So it's kind of like, I'm sorry for interrupting you, and I'm thinking, you know, like a pastor. I'm thinking like a pastor. You know, it's kind of like not full commitment. That somebody has not really committed their heart, their mind that, look, whenever I'm presented with a chance to cut corners, I will not do it. We will not cut corners, we will not compromise our business, the integrity of our business, even when we are presented with an opportunity.
Yes.
Yes.
And you put it very well, Gigi. You put it extremely well.
Yes.
So the question is, how many people will think that way?
Yes.
And act that way?
Okay.
People will know it's wrong.
Yes.
Yeah. But the decisions they make, the actions they take, you know, say the complete opposite.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Complete opposite. So integrity is paramount. I don't know whether you can actually teach integrity.
Right.
Are you born with integrity? But those are the things. And issues of integrity and also issues of honesty.
Right.
You know, they go hand in hand.
Yes.
Honesty.
Yes.
You know? Because, you know, as an auditor, for example, as an auditor, when you go into a client's premises and you're looking at all this information, you know, you've got access to a lot of sensitive information, some that you can actually use. You can be auditing a company that is quoted on the stock exchange.
Right.
And you know that probably they've got these big plans, and you know, if these big plans work, this share, the value of this share just go through the roof.
Yes.
So what do you do with that information?
Right.
Do you go out and tell your family members, please buy shares in this company? Yeah?
Right.
So honesty and integrity are critical. And those are things that you can't teach a human being.
Right.
Yeah?
Yes.
I think you need to have that in you.
Yes.
You can remind people, but the choice whether they want to go that way or not. So,
and you know, Stephen, why I am raising this, it's because you see, if you look at the business plans, any corporate, you will see where they have this section, our core values. So there's usually a very nice list, and honesty, integrity, accountability. They make in that list. Yes. But then how that becomes expressed and instantiated in the company, that becomes a problem.
Yes. In fact, you've just hit the nail on the head.
Yes.
Those values will be very similar, and it's not by, I mean, it's not a coincidence.
Yes.
Because those are the things we should all aspire for.
Yes.
If you're running a good organization, you want to be very accountable to your stakeholders.
Yes.
Yeah. You want honest people. You want to do things with integrity.
Yes.
You know, all those things are important for a business. But as you say, then how do you demonstrate that?
Yes.
And successful companies will be able to put certain measures in place, certain processes in place that you can use to check.
Right.
That actually the staff in this business are of high integrity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
But some will put those values there at the reception, and even if you ask the CEO, so what does this mean in your business, they'll not be able to explain.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're going to return to that.
Yes.
So we are going into a short break. So, ladies and gentlemen, I believe you're following this conversation. We are talking about corporate governance, why businesses fail. And we have already highlighted a number of things. We're talking about the role of, ethics and moral standards in business, some of the ways in which you can deal with, possibilities of failure. So we still have a few more issues to bring into this conversation. We are only beginning to touch. So we're going to a short break. When we come back, we're going to revisit those issues and see how we can incorporate good ethical and moral standards in organizations. All right, so don't go away. We're coming back shortly.
Our topic today is investment to the youth.
If you want to influence the future, do something about the present,
Sure.
do something about the young generation.
All right, welcome back. We are here discussing the issues of corporate governance, why businesses fail. And I have on the set my friend Stephen Lugadia. He's an expert. He's a fellow of the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya. These are the guys who really watch organizations and they know the inside workings of organizations and businesses, and especially his specialization in corporate governance. So before we went to the break, we were talking about the issues of ethical and moral standards that help businesses really run properly. And so, Stephen, we mentioned some of these elements, the, integrity, honesty, accountability. What are the other issues that are important in guiding organizations in terms of?
Yeah, thanks, Gigi. I mean, in addition to those issues that we just discussed, there are also issues. Remember now when you're in managing people, people from diverse backgrounds. So the issues of equity comes in. How do you treat your staff? Issues of fairness come in.
Yes.
If you are the leader of the business, maybe you are the CEO, you've got to demonstrate that you are fair to everybody.
Right.
Have you seen organizations where the CEO's brother or the CEO's cousin, they're holding very senior positions.
Yes.
But if you look at the sort of quality of the output, they don't really qualify for those positions.
Okay.
So it always leaves the other people within the organization, the other team members feeling like, this is not a very good organization to work for.
Yes.
So if you want to manage your organization properly, be very fair. If there's no problem you employing your brother in your company. There's no problem whatsoever.
Yes.
As long as you go through due process.
Yes.
And you subject that person to the same conditions like everybody else within the business. I mean, no special favors.
Yes.
And that works perfectly well.
Absolutely.
Perfectly well. Yeah.
Let him come through the HR.
Let him come through. Let him be interviewed.
Let him be interviewed 3 times, like everybody else.
Like everybody else.
Yes.
Let him have his KPIs. Key performance indicators that he'll be measured against.
Yes.
And let somebody else measure him against those.
Absolutely.
And the consequences of that is like everybody else. I mean, you do well, this is what you get. You don't do well, these are the consequences.
Yes.
So issues of equity and fairness are very, very important when it comes to moral and ethical issues in businesses.
Okay.
Yeah. And then transparency. And what is transparency? I mean, we keep talking about transparency.
Yeah.
When you're running a business, people must know your vision. People must know. So in 2022, what's the plan for 2022?
Okay.
Usually you'll find that, the strategic plan is normally discussed by senior members of staff. Maybe the CEO, the board of directors, and maybe the finance director, and a couple of other senior people. These are the guys who now discuss and they set the plans and the targets for the business. But do the other staff know what you're trying to achieve?
Okay.
You've got to be transparent, tell the staff, this is what we met, and this is what we discussed, and this is what you intend to achieve in 2022. And this is how you guys fit in the plan.
Okay.
So that they feel we are part of this business.
Right.
They feel ownership. So that transparency is very important.
Okay.
On a regular basis, do they know how the business is performing?
Right.
Financial statements, financial reports. Should it be a secret? If you're making losses in the business, shouldn't the staff know? And why are we making losses? Explain to them. Yeah. But some businesses will not tell you that. It's like a big secret, this is only for the managing director and the board.
Yes.
You must be transparent.
Okay.
Once you're transparent with your team members, believe me, they'll feel like, we owe you. You're part of, we are part of this business.
Okay.
So those are some other considerations.
Yeah, and I can imagine, of course, lack of transparency then creates rumor mills and confusion, so that and then that foster suspicion and distrust, mistrust within the organization. Yes. So while you could have actually just communicated and said, no, look, we are not making money. Yes. We lost money during the COVID, yes. And this is exactly how much money we lost, and this is why we lost money. Yes. Our sales dipped, as you all know, and this is where we are. And we're going to have some bit of squeeze. We will not give you a pay rise.
Precisely.
Exactly.
And one way of doing that is having what we call, group meetings or town halls.
Yes.
Every month or every quarter, you call all the staff and tell them about what's happening in the business. Good companies do that.
Yes.
And they tell them everything. And the staff are allowed to ask difficult questions.
Yes, exactly.
Why didn't you get a pay rise? And you explain.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that helps businesses.
Absolutely. Yes, exactly. So, and then now, of course, we can, tied to that, of course, is the good, the big old problem of corruption, and how it seeps into the organization. So, of course, one of the, benefits of corporate governance, or rather a well-structured corporate governance, is that then it helps the organization to run properly, then you can avoid all the pitfalls. Yes. So, speak to this thing called corruption in the corporate. And given you have seen a lot of organizations, how does it, what exactly goes on? And then what really drives those sort of things in the organization?
So as you say, that's a big animal. I think it's been discussed. It's discussed every day.
Yes.
Every forum, there's a talk about corruption.
Yes.
But that as it may, I think I normally like to look at it from a value perspective.
Okay.
From a value perspective, because sometimes we lose ourselves into the mega corruption,
Yes.
that is highlighted, things happening in big companies or roads or government. We lose sight of the small things that happen at the micro level. And when I talk about the micro level, I'm talking about the individual level.
Yes.
Your household, my household, the people in the streets, yeah. So the value system is extremely important. And that value system, for some reason, I think probably as a country, we've kind of lost it, and that's why we don't see it as a big deal to bribe a policeman. It's not a big deal. It's normal way of dealing with my problems.
Yes.
And this really differentiates us from the successful countries that have got good values.
Right. Yes.
Like if you go to some advanced countries, queuing for a service is a normal thing, Orderly queuing for a service is a normal thing.
Yes.
Here, scrambling is the order of the day. You're scrambling for something. So that thinking that, I must fight for whatever I need.
Yes.
I think is already a bit of the value system that we have. So it starts from there, and even starts from our own homes.
Yes.
The sort of values that you impact to your family members. That's where it starts. That's where it starts.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now when you go to now the country or the corporations, we're basically saying these things have come from our homes.
Okay.
So when you go into that office, will you have different values from what you have at home? Probably not.
Okay.
Probably not. And that's where governance now comes in. Governance now comes in structures.
Yes.
Structures in place, accountability measures in place, so that we can be able to arrest some of those bad behaviors that we have.
Okay.
So in other words, Gigi, my first point is let's go back and look at our value systems.
Yes. Revisit our values.
Yeah. Before we start
and be very, very honest.
Very honest about it.
Okay.
Because you are the players. When you leave the house, who is government? Who is in the private sector that partakes of corruption? It's me and you.
Yes.
It's us.
Yes.
When I go to government, maybe I'm the PS or maybe I'm a senior member in a ministry. So the values I carry from home then become very important.
Okay.
So governance is there now to try and mitigate some of these poor value systems by putting structures in place so that you are accountable. You're accountable.
Right.
And the success or otherwise of those measures, again, depends very much on how ethical you are, the integrity that you have. Because if I'm the finance director and I'm supposed to approve something, and I know this thing hasn't gone through due process, I can choose to do it or not.
Yeah.
So it's the people that really fuel this corruption.
Right.
The people value system.
Okay.
For me, is the most important thing.
Absolutely.
Structures, believe me, even if you look at the government, the structures are so tight.
Yeah, it's true. It's true, actually. It's true. Government has fantastic structures.
Fantastic structures.
Yeah.
So when you have this debate, I always look at the individual players. And then the second thing I look at is, okay, granted now we are where we are. But beyond the structures, is there another layer of checking that can happen? Okay. And that's where we go now to institutions. The serious institutions in this country that are supposed to make sure that, in case you're caught, in case you do something that is not in line with good governance, or you're involved in corruption, they deal with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's after the event, but it's still important to see. So how then do you deal with these people who are now corrupt? We found them.
Okay.
How do you deal with them? And that's where I think we also have a problem.
Because those institutions also may also have their own, limitations and challenges, value issues also, within those institutions.
Yes.
Okay, so, but because some of the people listening to us are also, they are looking at corporate governance as a solution. So, let me give you a scenario. A big retail organization, started failing, or rather, failed.
Yes, failed.
We have had 2 or actually 3 or so, a number of very successful, retail businesses that have since had to exit the market. Do you think that had something to do with the structure, their corporate governance issues? Were there problems there? Is it that the boards, or what do you think is the problem?
So the problems with some of the things that you mentioned is that, first of all, you need to look at the economic climate.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you look at the strategies for these businesses.
Okay.
I mean, that's where it really starts. Do you have a good strategy, first of all?
Okay.
You could actually have the wrong strategy for the market you're going in.
Yes.
And that in itself will lead to your failure because of wrong strategy.
Right.
But assuming you've got the right strategy and you've gone into the market, what else could go wrong? So the things that could go wrong is you may have the wrong corporate governance structures.
Okay.
And what do I mean by that? You may have the wrong board, for example. And
okay.
A board is such a critical aspect of good corporate governance. So if you don't have the right people in the board, then even that oversight they're supposed to give will not be that robust.
Okay.
So if management is doing stuff that is not in line with the strategy, things that are actually not right, the board may not even be able to notice that.
Okay.
Because you don't have the right people within that board.
Okay.
Yeah. And some of these institutions you're talking about, that was one of the reasons.
Okay.
You get individuals in boards that don't have the skills, the competencies, even they don't have the right ethical values, and to put them in that board.
Okay.
So you can imagine what will happen. Yeah. So that's number one. The second problem was in terms of the accountability within management.
Okay.
Policies and procedures. For example, do you have a conflict of interest policy within the business?
Oh yeah, by the way, speaking about conflict of interest, yes. Yeah, so yeah, speaking to that.
Yeah. So some of these institutions, from what you saw in the press, is that I'm trading with a company that I'm a CEO for, and I'm not disclosing that. I'm a supplier of this company.
Yeah.
So it's very easy for me to manipulate.
Right.
Either pricing, or even get stuff that doesn't meet the quality standards. It's very easy. And when you have that sort of things happening, maybe the prices could be too high or the quality standard is not good enough, you lose market. People will not come and buy there.
Yes.
Yeah. So conflict of interest issues was one of the problems.
Okay.
And then the other issue was a dominant CEO, dominant CEOs who also have shareholding within the business. So that separation of ownership and management in some of the organizations wasn't really there.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You find this is the CEO, but it's got a significant shareholding, or he's related to somebody who is a significant shareholder.
Okay.
And therefore, some of these things just happened, and controls were overlooked, accountability not in place, and in fact, even in some cases, outright fraud, outright manipulation of financial statements. These things happened.
Okay.
So there was a complete collapse of integrity at that particular level. Because it's not that they don't know what to do. They knew what to do, but they had their own selfish interests.
Absolutely.
And it led to that.
In other words, what you're saying is that when you think about corporate governance, you have to bear in mind that individuals operate from the place of self-interest. Yes. So you can't ignore that. So you just have to know, and you can't assume that if Stephen and I, we sign up and become directors of this enterprise, I have to be aware that Stephen is also looking to make some money. And I'm looking to make some money.
Yes.
So don't assume that that's not my interest. Those are my personal interests. I mean, and they are there. They will come to bear on how the organization runs. So you have to have measures to mitigate that, isn't it?
In fact, the common term you see is that don't use trust as a control in a business. Don't say, I trust Gigi, therefore I don't need to check what he's doing. No. You can trust Gigi,
yes,
but make sure there are checks and balances so to check Gigi's work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is important. And so when it comes to issues of now governance,
yes,
you can have all the good measures in place.
Yes.
Good structures, good accountability structures in place, and you've not properly checked it. But since you're my friend, I say, I can't assume it's been checked.
Yes.
Yeah. Then it goes all the way. You're actually making payments for things probably should not be making payment for.
Okay.
So collusion is a big issue. Mm-hmm. It's a big issue.
Right.
And that's where now we bring in another oversight called auditors.
Okay.
So if you're running your business, make sure you've got very good auditors.
Very good.
Independent auditors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. People who are there to give you a view of your business.
Yes.
It could be a view about your financial reports.
Yes.
Your financial statements. We've checked and these statements are correct, are okay. We've checked your systems of procurement and you're happy that you've got proper checks and balances.
Yes.
You've even checked some of the invoices that are properly approved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's another layer of governance that is extremely important.
Okay.
When everything else fails, these are the guys who will be able now to pick up some of these things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I love that. I love that. And that's why actually the Institute of Certified Public Accountants really is at the heart of corporate governance.
Indeed.
And because you're saying when everything else, in other words, if you suspect that there are problems, then you bring in the accounting, the audit side of things, and then you let them really give you an honest opinion and be willing to implement whatever changes they bring in.
Indeed.
Okay.
Indeed.
So, of course, as you know, some of the people listening to these conversations are pastors. Bishops. And by the way, church organizations have become very large. Some of the church organizations are very large. So maybe I'm going to ask you questions within questions.
Okay.
One, should churches, be audited, for example, by a proper marketplace auditing firm, PwC and stuff like that. Yes. And then that's one. And then how do you apply this corporate governance in a system where, men of God, bishops and archbishops and pastors and apostles are the leaders and founders of these institutions. So speaking to that, I know it's very complex, but...
It is, but I look at churches just like any other institution.
Okay.
I mean, the first thing you ask yourself is, what's the purpose of the church? What's the mission of the church? What's your strategy? What do you want to achieve?
Yes.
And if I went to a particular church and told them, do you have a strategic plan so that I know you are here for this particular purpose, and this is how you'll know whether they've achieved the purpose? Yeah.
Yes.
So those things must be in place.
Right.
Otherwise, then it becomes very difficult even to understand what is it that you want to do.
Okay.
So do you have a plan? Do you have a vision? Do you have a strategy? Is it something that you can measure? In 2021, for example, if I asked Pastor Gigi, what are your intentions for 2021 in terms of the people you are ministering to?
Okay.
Yeah. Will you be able to give me an answer?
All right.
Yeah. So I look at a church just like any other institution.
Okay.
It's got a purpose, it's got strategies, it's got plans. And what I'm not quite clear about churches is, do they have financial reports?
Okay.
Yeah, because this is something that is important to any institution. At the end of the day, whatever you want to do, whether it's ministering, whether it's selling tomatoes, you need some sort of financing to do that, some sort of funding to do that. The nature of funding may be very different.
Right.
Yeah?
Yes.
For churches, probably the congregation or the people worshiping will be the main source of financing.
Yes.
Those activities.
Yes.
Yeah? But do these people understand what are those activities? What do the church, what does it intend to get out of these activities? Do you have a report card, for example?
Okay.
As a church.
Yeah, those are very hard questions.
Yes.
But they need to be asked, Stephen, because churches, like you rightly say, they are institutions and they are organizations that must be accountable to their own stakeholders, who are the members, the churches, the families, that are part of those churches. So clearly there has to be some kind of institution. I'll let you know that our church actually has been audited and is ongoing. There is an audit. We are actually at the point where we are auditing ourselves for last year. And so that has really taught us a lot of lessons that we have to take care of all those little bits and pieces of how we run the ministry.
Yes.
Okay. Have you audited a church or anything like that?
I've never audited a church, actually.
Yeah.
But what I believe is that, this governance that we're talking about is applicable at all levels.
Okay.
As I said, from the family unit, institutional unit, the country unit, it's applicable. So these structures must be there.
Okay.
Whether you're a church, it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Very good. So is there something that maybe I am not talking about, that I'm not bringing to this conversation, that you feel you want to speak into, so that then we can begin to wrap this up?
Yes, I think one of the things that really bothers me and many other people is that this country has a lot of people with knowledge in good governance.
Yes.
Private sector, public sector. I've been training directors and senior members of staff for a long time.
Right.
And if I just look at the pipeline of the people who've come through this training, it's huge.
Yes.
Yeah. But the question that comes up is, why aren't we seeing a difference?
Okay.
Yeah. Why aren't we seeing a difference? If anything, if you look at the various metrics, we seem to be getting more and more corrupt as a country.
Okay.
We're not seeing the benefits of this good governance. So is there something that we are not doing as pioneers and as promoters of good governance? Maybe that's the conversation we need to have.
Okay.
Is it our institutions that we should be working on to make sure that they actually perform? Or is it the individuals themselves?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
For example, if I ask you now as a church, issues of integrity, issues of equity, issues of honesty. That is the core of that's the core of the mandate of the church. You want people to live in a very godly manner, and godly talk about honesty, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And servant leadership.
Yes.
When you look at your congregation, I don't know if you have any programs, as a church, that goes to the heart of those issues.
Okay. Okay.
Because that is where it really starts. You got to change the individuals to change the system.
Absolutely. I love what you've said. You got to change the individuals in order to change the systems. Yeah. And the other issue that you actually did speak into, the issue of values. Because, and you can tell, we have a problem. You get to the traffic lights and they are red and you drive through.
Drive through.
Now, you can't do that in London.
Of course. You
can't do that in Paris. Yes. Not in New York.
You'll be arrested.
In these countries. Yes. So people respect those little things, and here we don't. And I'm saying that including myself, because I've jumped a few lights, especially on Sunday when I'm rushing to church.
Late for church.
and
you know why we don't respect those things?
Yes.
Because the consequences are probably nothing will happen.
Right.
And that's where another problem is.
Yes.
Okay, I've done something wrong. Everybody knows I've done something wrong. But am I going to pay for it?
Okay.
Probably not.
Right.
And that really encourages other people to say, you know what, you can get away with anything.
Okay.
So institutions, again, become important.
So laissez-faire approach to issues can actually also be part of that problem. Values and then laissez-faire. And people, when people, like, for example, when an issue is raised, there's just tumbled.
Yes.
What do you think the problem is?
I don't know if it's a maintenance problem, but again, there's an accountability problem there.
Okay.
Such things, why should they happen? Why did they happen? And so they happened. And who was responsible?
Okay.
What action has actually been taken to make sure it doesn't happen again?
Okay.
So that follow-through has to be there, and it's got to be made very public. This is really what happened, this was the mistake, or this was the problem, and this is how you're dealing with this problem in future. This is how we're dealing with the people who should have been dealing with this problem at that time.
Okay.
So that consequence management is probably what is lacking.
Yes. And do you think that the board of this particular institution could be held accountable for that? So at what point can we point fingers at the board?
So the board, first of all, is supposed to make sure that the citizens of this country have access to power all the time.
Okay. Yes.
That's one of the key mandates. That's why they're in the board.
Yes.
They're there to make sure that there's power for everybody.
Yes.
At affordable rates. The affordable one, of course, we all...
Affordable, it's a subject of discussion.
And for them to do that, they're doing that through management.
Okay.
Yeah, they're putting a team in place to ensure that that happens. The primary role is to make sure they've got a very good CEO who can then appoint a very good team to support him. So when something fails, it could be somebody probably at a very lower level who did not do the job properly.
Okay.
They can't start running away from responsibility and saying, you know what, this thing was because certain technician somewhere did not do 1, 2, 3 things. No, it's their responsibility.
Okay.
And the CEO has really got to explain to them exactly what happened, because that then is his role. It's for him to make sure that he's got the right structures below him to support the board's mandate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So they can't run away from responsibility.
Yes.
You can't. I mean, you are the board, you are the board.
Okay. Very good. So we have to come to the end of this, but before we do, I want to give you just like 30 seconds. You can look at that camera and just speak to all these wonderful brothers and sisters out there in the marketplace.
Yes.
Just word of encouragement.
Right, indeed.
Yeah.
So for the viewers, I know there's a diverse viewership there. I mean, some of you probably are CEOs, some of you probably are just starting on your business. What I can tell you is that there is very good payback from good corporate governance. And it doesn't matter how small or how big you are, but those practices that need to be in the business, accountability, policies, try and embed these things in your business. Don't think that they'll make your business expensive, because you got to make sure that whatever you're doing fits within the expectations of your business in terms of the financial stability, etc. So good corporate governance has a payback. And if you all practice some of these things to a particular level, we shall all find that our businesses are succeeding, we are able to employ more people. The country will benefit eventually. So that's my message to you. And if you're in government, probably you're watching it, you're in government, just remember that you control one of the biggest allocation of funds in this country. And your role as a government employee, as a government servant, is to ensure that whatever you are entrusted with, you're using it for the benefit and the good of the citizens of this country.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have to come to the end of this particular program today. Thank you for staying tuned in, and I believe you have learned a lot about the role of corporate governance and how you can avoid business failure. That's all we had for you today. This has been your host, Godfrey Gichuki, and this is the Gigi Report. God bless you. We'll see you another day, same time, same place. God bless you. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.